So many people ask the question why we spend so much money doing Vedic rituals. One time, several years ago, we did one fire ceremony here in Richmond. We spent $7,000 on that ceremony. About 6,000 of that we put into the fire in one day. And at that time, we were raising money, and a lot of people had the question, and it's a good question. They didn't know why we would spend so much money. People ask, why does God need all of this? And the simple answer is that God does not need these things, but we as people do. And I'll try to explain this. When I was a child in high school, I remember not being very much interested in my studies there in high school. That's not to say it's not important for most people to study and to get a degree so that they can get good jobs in the world. But I don't work a job in the world. My job is this: giving spiritual teachings, spreading the light of my Guru. I don't worry about the money. I worry about serving and helping other people. And in turn, God worries about me. And so I've been supported in this practice. I knew even at that young age that it was not so important for me to have the degree to do the work that I do. And I was not very interested in my studies. The history I disagreed with. They always taught in the history classes that there were some bad guys in history and some good guys. And they all seemed pretty good to me. And in literature, I didn't have much interest either. I would read these stories, Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, and people would say, "Isn't it such a tragedy? Oh, it's so sad." And I would think and say, "No, not so sad. Those idiots had it coming to them." The way they treat people, they had it coming to them. If they didn't want this tragedy, they could have changed their own actions. I had trouble to empathize with the characters in the literature. And the science, again, I didn't quite agree with. And so as I was that age in high school, I was impressed by the suffering I saw of people around me, walking around, growing up. I saw homeless people hungry on the street, and I felt for them. Since I was very young age, I could feel the feelings of the people around me. And so it was natural for me to try to help people to ease their suffering. Because I could feel their suffering as well, and for myself, so I could feel better, I wanted to help them even. It was natural, because I was feeling what they were feeling. And so I left high school around the age of 14, 15, something like this, and I set up one organization that was cooking food and serving food to the homeless people. We would bring them food. Each day we cooked food and we brought them food. The people would come back and they were always hungry. Sometimes we would get donations of food. Sometimes a lot of us there, we would work jobs and we bought the food with our money we got from working to feed these hungry people. But as we fed them, I saw they kept coming again. Each day, again, they're hungry. Every time we brought the food, they're hungry, having the same problem. And I started to think, well, are we really helping them? Because every day they still have the same problem. And so I started to think of ways that I could try to help them more. And I started asking people questions. Why is it that you're hungry? Why is it that you're homeless on the street? And a few of them would say, "Oh, well, I just want to be homeless. I don't want to have money. I prefer to live this way." And okay, so you leave them be. Maybe some were mentally ill. They either didn't have the funds to take their medication, or maybe they had their medication and they threw it away, they didn't want to take it. And so they're having this struggle they don't have a solution for. Again, you know, you drop that, they don't want the solution, you leave it be. But others, you said, oh, well, I don't want to be homeless. I came into hard times, came to trouble with my wife and family, and then I got kicked out. I didn't have a place to go. I lost my job. I don't have a job. I can't get a job. There's that C word I don't like. I can't get a job because I don't have an address, and the employer wants me to have an address. I don't have a phone, so when they call me back after the interview, I can't answer. And so I said, well, let me help you. You need an address, use my address. They'll send mail to you, to me, I'll bring it to you. You need a phone number, use my phone number. I'll tell them, hold on, he's out right now, I'll get him, I'll come find you. I'll give you the phone, you talk to them. And so as we did this, I would help people. I'd help them find jobs. I'd look in the newspaper and find the suitable job for them and bring them the phone and let them call, and they'd use my address. And then it would come time for the interview and they'd say, I can't go, I'm not clean. I don't have clean clothes. So we'd get them clean clothes and we'd give them a place to bathe and we'd help them. And they'd get ready, and now so it's time for the interview, and they would not show up for the interview and they'd not go. Almost invariably, these people, ultimately we'd find they were choosing not to take the steps they needed to take to get themselves off the street, to get a job, to get a home, to get food. For various reasons. Some people, I think, had been so angry at others in their life, they wanted to show them, look how badly you hurt me, now I'm homeless, now I'm hungry, now I'm getting sick and I don't have medical treatment. They were thinking maybe if they suffered enough that people would realize that they had done wrong to them. And so they were not allowing themselves to move forward. But it would come down to, in each case, that the people were simply making a choice to be homeless. Maybe out of insanity, maybe out of unresolved issues of some sort. But that ultimately they were choosing. Whatever they said and whoever they blamed, the responsibility always came back to themselves. Because when we would give them the things they needed physically to take those steps, they were still choosing not to take those steps. And that's when I realized that those approaches were not helping people, because they had internal issues unresolved. And so I would try to counsel them, get them to go to counselors. They didn't want to take the steps again. They didn't want to resolve their inner issues. They didn't have the clarity. They talk about logic. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks about vitarka. Vitarka is the spiritual way of thinking. It's contrary to normal logic. Tarka is logic, it's rational, logical, linear thinking. And kutarka is bad logic. When people are hurting themselves, they think this is good for them, this is kutarka. Most people function in kutarka most of the time. But when people are really doing a spiritual practice, they get the blessing and they develop vitarka, this higher wisdom that knows that when you want something in the world that you're not getting, you have to shift yourself inwardly. Because what happens outside is a manifestation of one's own karmas. Those karmas have to be faced, but if we choose to face them inwardly, we can shift the outward situation. Yet how to get people to shift themselves inwardly? It's not an easy task. You can't tell someone to do it. You can't necessarily explain it to a person. You can't force a person to do anything. You just get frustrated in the efforts. And so first I needed to see how to shift myself inwardly by doing sadhana. By sitting, meditating, chanting the mantras. And when issues would come up to distract me, I'd resolve them. If I did something I felt guilty about, I would do something to make amends for that. If I said hurtful words to a person, I'd go back and say loving words 5 times for each. One time I said something hurtful. If I had taken something wrongfully from someone, I'd go and give something of a similar value back to them and apologize. Not for them. I didn't care what they would think. Maybe they'd get upset. Oh, you took something, I'm angry. But for me, I needed to do the right thing. And ultimately, when I did, conflicts from the past were resolved and those issues were cut away. And the mind became clearer in the meditation. And when still the mind was not happy about the resolution, but there were no more steps I could take, then I could write down, as my Guruji had recommended, write down what I was thinking and feeling and burn it. And make positive affirmations also. If I'm thinking I'm a bad person because I said a bad thing, I tell myself instead, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. And that's great if you can do that, but sometimes if you're doing the bad things, your mind, subconscious mind, will never let you believe you're a good person. If you've done the bad things even, you have to undo that by doing good things to help make amends. This is why they say we get punyam, merit, for doing good deeds. We get good self-esteem that allows us to move forward and have successes in the world. Yet as I did that, I saw it was an energetic process when you do the puja. It's an energetic process that allows you to release the negativity from the past and to welcome the divine energy, the peaceful consciousness. And so I realized as I was doing this, and I kept this experience of feeling what others were feeling around me, I started to realize that if someone around me was angry, I could also do the sadhana to help to ease their anger. And this is one beautiful thing. The Vedic rituals that the rishis, the sages, have given to us are for that purpose in particular. For helping to resolve the karmas of all society. They say when a group of people meditates, when a group of people prays together, when they chant the Vedas together, that it has an effect on the entire society. And certain things built into these Vedic rituals, the design of the homakund, the offerings into the fire, help to amplify that spiritual practice that people are doing. Consciousness is affected by the consciousness of other people around. If you go to a place where people are laughing and having a good time, it uplifts your spirits to a happier place. Yet if you go to a place where people are afraid or where they are fighting and arguing, it brings you down into a fearful place, into an angry place, just a little bit. But every little bit definitely has its effect. And so when people are doing practices to make their own minds very peaceful, this does more to bring peace to society than any kind of peace talks that we can have. We've had many talks to try to resolve the many conflicts throughout the world. Yet we've had many wars throughout history. This is one thing I learned in my history class. We've had many wars again and again throughout history. At the time of the Second World War, the Shankaracharya of Dwarka did one Adi Rudram, a big, large-scale Vedic fire ritual. This was conducted for the purpose of bringing an end to the Second World War. And after a long time of conflict, as this fire ceremony was going on, sure enough, the Second World War came to an end. There were peace agreements signed as this fire ceremony was going on for the peace of the world. The Vedic rituals have a huge effect on human consciousness, and that has a huge effect on the world. Also, natural disasters are lessened because the weather, like human consciousness, is affected by the thoughts and the feelings of the people. And so if there are a lot of tornadoes, if there are a lot of tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes, this is directly connected to people's mental state. When people's thoughts are agitated, when they're moving around all over the place, when there's lots of fear, anger, and confusion, it's turmoil in the mind. And this actually has an effect on the energy in the atmosphere. And this stirs up the weather. People are not facing what's inside of them so they can resolve it. They carry resentment with them for many years. They remain angry about many unresolved issues from the past, but they don't look within to try to resolve these. This not only affects their own minds, it makes them less capable workers, less capable partners in relationships, makes them less conscious, because as they try to look at something clearly, they have all these thoughts chattering in their mind. I feel angry. It hurts not only their own state, it hurts all of society. That's why we have a spiritual duty to undo this, that other people are doing around us. People think maybe it's not fair, that they should have to do extra spiritual practice to undo what people around them are doing. But absolutely it's fair, because they're affected by it, and if they want to get free from it, they have to do their spiritual practice first. And after we've done some personal practice to resolve what's within us, then we can come together as a group in a temple, and we can use this science of yakyam, of puja, taught by the Veda rishis. The way a temple is designed, it's designed to amplify the power of the Vedic mantras, amplify the energy of the devas coming through, to open a channel to the inner realm so the devas can send their blessings to the physical realm. And then that temple serves as an amplifier to increase that powerful, peaceful energy. And as a transmitter, the temple tower, the Gopuram, is a transmitter to send out that energy to all the people around. People ask, how can you give so much money to do the Vedic rituals, to put $6,000 of offerings into a fire in one day when there's people hungry? People saw me putting lots of food offerings into the fire, and they said, shouldn't we have given that food to hungry people? And I would say, why? We give them that food today, tomorrow they'll still be hungry. If we give this food into the fire, we affect their consciousness in a way that maybe in time they shift. And they decide, hey, I should get over my past and go to this job interview and work a job and get a place to live and get money so I can go to the store and buy food and cook the food for myself. This helps society much more. Much, much more. We could give people food, but still they get hungry again.